The cheapest modifications should cause concern. After all, they were often bought for taxi service. And in the future, similar cars with a mileage of 500 to 700,000 kilometers were sold on the secondary market at low prices, which attracted Ukrainian ferrymen. Later, taxi drivers are issued as civilian cars with innocent mileage. You can identify such cars by shabby or too new seat upholstery, only remotely resembling a high-quality Mercedes finish, as well as by traces on the dashboard left after the dismantling of radio telephones or counters. Of course, there is no talk of any corrosion yet. Although a thorough inspection of the body does not hurt, there are many thoroughly broken and restored copies on the market. The choice of motors for the 210th body is unusually wide. Gasoline modifications are more common, a characteristic feature of which, like diesel engines, is the use of a durable chain in the timing drive instead of a belt, serves up to 300,000 kilometers. There is a choice from the base 2.0-liter modification, obviously rather weak for an almost 1.5-ton car, to the 5.0-liter engine from AMG, which turns the sedan into an uncompromising sports car. Acceleration to 100 km/h for the E55 AMG takes only 5.7 seconds. Fees for different levels of equipment will be appropriate. Four-cylinder engines of 2 and 2.3 liters are one of the most reliable and unpretentious. No problems have been observed with them. The larger the engine size, the more likely the occurrence of difficulties. On the most popular 6-cylinder engines on the market with a volume of 2.8 and 3.2 liters, M104 series, oil often leaks from under the cylinder head gasket. On newer units of a similar volume, M112 series, after 1997, due to incompatibility with Ukrainian fuel, injector nozzles can coke, often requiring replacement, $100. A hard-to-diagnose airflow meter after a run of 120 to 150,000 kilometers may also require replacement, which will cost almost $300. The heaviest 8-cylinder engines not only finish off the suspension much faster, but also disable the engine hydraulic mounts. Replacing 2 parts will cost $250, $300. In addition, operating costs increase significantly. For example, only the replacement of platinum candles on 8-cylinder engines, 2 candles per cylinder, will cost $160. And that's without the cost of labor. Although, in general, these units are quite tenacious. There are a lot of diesel modifications of the 210th in our market. The most affordable E220D is at the same time the most reliable, since it is not supercharged in its design. But the retribution for durability will be more than mediocre dynamics at the level of the classic Ziguli. For more temperamental drivers, a 2.9-liter turbo diesel and a naturally aspirated 3.0-liter unit are intended. In 1997, the naturally aspirated engine was removed from the range, replacing it with an inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel of equal volume. Malfunctions characteristic of these motors are not noted, but you need to change the fuel filter at least after 20,000 kilometers, otherwise problems with the high-pressure fuel pump cannot be avoided. It should be remembered that on 2.2 and 2.9-liter units, this unit is not reparable, and replacing it will negate all the savings. For example, the cost of a fuel injection pump for a 2.9-liter engine exceeds $2,000. After a run of 100 to 120,000 kilometers, it may also be necessary to replace the fuel injector nozzles. For example, for a 6-cylinder diesel engine, work and parts will cost $300, $350. So buying an E-Class diesel without a thorough diagnosis and studying the service history is akin to playing Russian roulette. Despite the rather high status of the model, in Ukraine quite often there are big-eyed with a manual transmission. The exception is modifications with a volume of more than 3.2 liters. For them, a manual box was not provided even as an option, and in vain. This node is devoid of any shortcomings. The only thing worth remembering is that the oil is changed every 100,000 kilometers. Even the clutch of powerful modifications can last more than 150,000 kilometers. Around the same time, it will also be necessary to replace the rear axle gearbox oil seals, $110. There are 2 types of W210 automatic boxes, with conventional hydraulic control, until 1997, and modern automatic machines with complex electronic brains. A unit with an outdated design requires regular oil changes, but his air is considered unattended. This is misleading to many. If so, then you can forget about this knot. In fact, The condition of the oil needs to be monitored. If it is dark, with a burnt smell, then interference can no longer be avoided. Fortunately, both types of automatic transmissions are maintainable. The cost of restoring their performance is $600, $1,000. With timely and competent maintenance, automatic machines, without replacing friction clutches, can last over 250,000 kilometers. Rarely come across modifications with the 4MATIC all-wheel drive transmission. In the total number of W210, they were only 3%, distributing torque between the front and rear axles in a ratio of 35:65. Directly, the elements of the transmission do not cause any complaints. The top versions with all-wheel drive were equipped as standard not only with ABS, but also with ASR traction control and ESP stabilization system. Both systems are serviced by one hydraulic module, which, if driven too actively on fairly traveled specimens, can leak. Treatment is a complete replacement, and this is about $1,000. The chassis of the W210 is not particularly indestructible. In terms of reliability, it is close to many competitors. Judge for yourself, according to the testimony of experts and owners of Big-Eyed. On our roads, the service life of stabilizer struts does not exceed 20 to 30,000 kilometers, ball bearings, 40 to 50,000 kilometers, and silent blocks of front levers, 100 to 120,000 kilometers. At the same time, running gear parts cannot be called cheap. The same silent blocks cost $130, $150. Closer to a run of 80,000 kilometers, it will be necessary to replace the upper ball bearings. And they, alas, are supplied only assembled with levers, about $300. Shock absorbers on most modifications walk about 100,000 kilometers. But versions with heavy 8-cylinder engines can cut their service life in half. The rear suspension will require the first intervention after 120 to 140,000 kilometers. This will be a rather costly undertaking, since it will be necessary to change not only shock absorbers, but also 10 rear, multi-link levers, whose silent blocks wear out almost evenly. Everything will cost $700, $1,000. Considerable attention should be paid to the steering rack. If the mileage exceeded 200,000 kilometers, the appearance of a leak is not excluded. It lends itself poorly to repair, although local culebins can do it, and it's better not to remember the cost of a new one. Tie rod ends will last up to 100,000 kilometers. As the practice of operating the W210 shows, miracles do not happen. The reliability of these cars is based solely on attention and timely maintenance, and the class of the car obliges the owner to bear a certain level of expenses, allowing him to painlessly restore the performance of components and assemblies. At its core, the Mercedes E-Class is a status car that requires appropriate costs and a considerable overpayment for the image.